Hello, criminology aspirants. I am Jessa Esbrillantes, a third-year criminology student of STI West Negros University. And together with me is my co-lecturer, Michael Jetro Flores, and he is also a third-year BS Criminology student. And we are your lecturers for the subject Law Enforcement Actions. But before we formally start our discussion, let me remind you to have there your note-taking materials in order for you to write down the important points for your reference, particularly when you review the post-training assessment. Okay, at the end of this lecture, it is expected that you will able to understand the concept of law enforcement and policing, as well as you will able to know the do's and don'ts and policing, and lastly, you will able to demonstrate the law enforcement actions. We are also expecting that the things that you will be learning here will be beneficial to you as criminology aspirants and soon to be law enforcers and public safety officers. So, are you aware of the shooting incident happened in Panique, Tarlac months ago, wherein off-duty police officer shoot his two unarmed neighbors during their heated argument due to an improvised noise which is known as boga? If you are aware of that incident, what can you say about the action of the police? Do you think the action of the police officer towards shooting his neighbors is correct and proper being an active police officer? Does it comply or observe legal mandates of the PNP in terms of protection of lives as primordial duty of the police? So that's the thing that we are going to discuss on these lectures. That's called the law enforcement action. Okay, before we go to our specific discussion on law enforcement action, first let's take a look on the concept of criminology and how does it relates to law enforcement action and or what is its significance on law enforcement. So, criminology is a study of crimes as well as criminals and lastly criminality, wherein this course teach us on how people become criminals or how criminal behavior develop in a person and why there are behaviors or actions that are considered as crimes and why criminality exists. In that sense, we could therefore say that police officers being enforcers of the law must have thorough understanding of these matters, wherein they will never become a good enforcers of the law if they do not understand the causes of crimes and the root cause of criminality and the factors that influence man to engage in criminality. With this idea, we can say that police brutality or violation of policing protocols and standards are existing or committed by police officers due to the lack of understanding of these criminological ideas, principles, and theories. So, speaking of crimes, criminologists identify the following reasons why crime exists in our society. These are desire, ability, and opportunity. So, ability is also known as instrumentality. These are otherwise known as the elements of crime. So, desire, ability, and opportunity is also known as elements of crime. So in other words, crime will not be perpetrated if any of the following elements is absent. So kung absent ang isa lang element, ang crime hindi siya matabo. The desire to do something is already in a person. In the same manner, the will or desire to commit an act prohibited by criminal is already attached to a person due to the influence or force in the environment that motivates him to do such thing or act. Of course, ang desire nasa isa ka person wherein ang environment nagapush sa iya nga mag-commit pagid sa nga mo nga crime. And second is the ability to commit such criminal act is also in a person because he or she has the intellect and physical faculty and tools in accomplishing this evil desire. So, ang ability, ara na sa isa ka tawo, kami ara sa kinaalam, kag physical capacity nga mag-commit some crime. And lastly, we have the opportunity. For the act to be committed or consummated, it is in the potential victim or victim. So, ang opportunity naman, ara na sa victim, sa diin, kita mismo naghahatag oportunidad para biktimahon ta sang isa ka kriminal nga perpetrator. So, let's take this as an example. So, the spread or easy access of pornographic videos create a negative behavior to a person that eventually develop the desire to commit rape. Of course, social media is very powerful. Kisadra ta dali-dali na maka-access pornographic videos. So, tulod na siya sa isa ka person nga mag-commit sang rape. Being physically able and person, he can at any time do the act if there will be a potential victim. So, kung may potential victim na especially nagapuli tungang gabi kay may night out kag kaagahon nagapuli kay sahanon na no, amo na that's the time nga ang perpetrator magkuha sang opportunity para mag-rape sa isa ka babayi. So, in short, no, for that action, no, for that irresponsible action nga ginhimo mo, kay tungod ginuna mo paya ang night out, nagahatag kita sa isa ka perpetrator nga mag-commit sang crime. So, victimologist, so ang victimologist nagapati, no, nga hindi lang tanan sala sang perpetrator nga nakakommit sa sang crime. Of course, kisa tungod man sa or sala man sa sang isa ka victim kay ikaw mismo ay ka nagapulis sa imo kaugalingon. So, dapat ipulis man imo kaugalingon para ang crime hindi na matabo. Right? Kay kung pabayaan mo da karon kag tungod na da sa negligence mo nga i-safe ang imo nga self or i-safeguard ang imo nga self, no? Ang isa ka perpetrator nakakommit sang isa ka crime. So, we are not preventing crime but rather we encourage the commission of crimes out of our negligence and lack of discipline. So, kay tungod nga irresponsable kita kag way kita disiplina sa aton kaugalingon, no, nagprevent pa kita sang crime nga matabo. Since everyone or not everyone is completely aware of the concern of these things. So, kay tungod nga hindi kita tanan aware sa amo nga things, that's why we have police in our society in order to prevent and control crimes as their main duty and as part of being their primordial obligation to protect lives and property. So, police officers are mandated to maintain peace and order and make sure that everyone is obedient to the law. So, ang police officer naga-make sure gid nga ang tanan nagapati sa law nga ginhatag sang aton nga country. It is for this reason that they are most of the time nagakandak sila sang patrol para mag-encourage sa potential perpetrators of crime from doing it. That's why kita tada pulis sa aton nga mga dalan, no, naga-patrolling kay para ang crime hindi ma-exist. So, there is a saying, no, that while the cat is away, the mouse will play. So while the police officer are not around, The potential snatchers, killers, drug pushers, and other potential criminals are looking for opportunities to consummate their plans in desire to commit crimes. Of course, kung ay ang police officers nag-take advantage ang mga criminals para mag-commit sa sang crime kag para maka-victimize naman sa sang isa ka person. But when they saw police officers around or even just police patrol car, they also suspending their criminal operations. Pero kung kakita da sila police biskan patrol car lang na makita nila, nag-stop dayon ang ila nga mindset nga mag-commit sang crime. Kay of course, nahadlok sila maghimo sang isa ka crime kay tungod nga dakpon sila sang isa ka police if ever. So, that's how eliminate the opportunities to these lawless individuals to commit crime and violate criminal law. In doing so, police officers do not only ensure safety of public or potential victims, but at the same time, avoiding these potential criminals to commit crimes and suffer for its negative consequence. So, amo na ang tungod nga ara ang police sa isa ka society naga-eliminate siya or naga-deter sa sang crime kay tungod nahadlok ang isa ka perpetrator nga mag-commit sang crime kay dakpo sa sang pulis kung may pulis da nga naga-patrolling. Moving forward, these are the yardstick of policing efficiency of the police force in our locality. So when we say yardstick, it is a measurement, or shall we say the basis in saying that our police are doing their job and they do it with efficiency. So these are the following: the absence of crime, the low crime rate, and peaceful and orderly society. So if this is the situation in our society or particularly in our community, the police in terms of crime prevention efforts are doing excellently. But if the crime rate is very high in that area or community, we can say that the police are there but not doing their tactics or crime prevention strategies are ineffective and needs improvement, or worse, relieve then and change. Whether we like it or not, we cannot sacrifice public safety and order. Thus, if the police assigned is not effective in that area or not efficient, change them. Next, let's go to the concept of the term police. So the word police was derived from the Latin word politia, which refers to the civil administration, which itself derived from the ancient Greek word polis, which means city or state. So majority of us, if not all, sana all, knew exactly what police are and their significance in our society. So the responsibility of every police is significant or vital in protecting lives and property. Now, let's go to the basic rules of law enforcement. So, police officer has already also a guidelines in order for them to be aligned sa ila profession. Kay gamay lang nga sala sang isa ka police officer, pwede siya makakasa service or kisa, ang pinaka-worst, pwede sa mapriso. So, first, always do my duty under the law, serve the community, and protect all people from crime. Of course, as a police officer, it is your primordial duty to serve people and protect them from harm and threats. So you are there as a police officer to secure their lives as a police. Next, always respect and protect human dignity, maintain and uphold human rights. Of course, always follow the and uphold human rights. Kay magsala ka lang da or mag-attempt ka lang violate sa human rights, ikaw mismo nga police officer, pwede ka balikan or pwede ka kasuhan. Or worse ganyan ba ko, pwede ka makakasa service and mapriso ka. Next, always protect confidential matters to the extent required by the law. Of course, as a police officer, bawal dira ang mga chismosa kag chismoso. So, ang mga basa ba hindi pwede maging police officer. That is why, no, subong pa lang dapat i-train na kamo ka, kabalo ka mo magtago sa mga sekreto. Kung may nadakpan ka da, hindi na siya pwede i-wakwak kung police ka na. Next, always protect the well-being and health of all persons in my custody. Of course, gani as a police officer, balik kita sa babaw, no, you are there to protect the lives of others. Next, never use force unless strictly necessary and only to the less extent necessary. So, you are not allowed nga magamit sang persa sa imo nga dalakpon. Kung pwede lang da siya nga i-incapacitate, no? I-incapacitate lang siya, hindi siya nga pagsakiton. Next, never use torture, cruel, inhumane, or degrading treatment. It is never justified. So, hindi gid pwede ang torture or ang hindi makatawo nga hilimuon sa isa ka offender kay hindi mo na siya ma-justified sa court. So, kung once again torture mo dang imong kindakop, sa labton mo gid na siya. And never commit or tolerate acts of corruption. So, apan in the duty, hindi ka dapat magsilaw sa kwarta. Always serve gid sang imong katagipusoon nga waay naga-aim nga sa sweldo kundi sa imo nga ginsumpaan. Next, never forget that I'm also a member of the community I serve. So, hindi ka pwede makapili sang imo nga iservan, manggarano man da or pigado, no? Always gid pamisaron, stay gid humble or hindi magpili sang imo nga iserve because as part, you are always be part of the community I've served. So, ara ka da para mag-protect sang pumuluyo kag sang person. Now, let's go to the duty of a police officer. First, to serve and protect lives. So, the responsibility of every police officer is to serve the public and protect life and property. As what I've said a while ago, now as a police officer, it is your responsibility and your obligation to protect the lives and property of others. So, no police operation shall be conducted in order to serve or protect the illegal activity of a particular person, group, or criminal syndicate. Of course, as a police officer, ang bako gina, hindi tato ka, pwede ka commit sang corruption and you are not allowed to protect illegal activities. So, dapat dakpon mo na siya. Kay hindi na natsakto ang iya na obra. So, you are there as a police officer to arrest the person nga nagakommit sang illegal or criminal act. Next is to observe human rights and dignity of a person. So, all PNP shall respect the human rights and dignity of the suspect during police operation. That is regardless whether he committed the crime or not, caught in the act or suspected or reported. The police shall not resort to brutality and torture when dealing with the suspect because, of course, they serve or they deserve also the protection of lives. The police are not organized to punish individuals or to kill them, but to enforce the law and provide safety for everyone. So, police or law enforcement action to be legitimate, the legal must be in accordance with legal procedures and standards. So, failure of the police to observe these standards and procedures will also lead to the dismissal or separation of the police service, or sometimes imprisonment depending on the gravity of their violations to the procedural laws for police operations or actions. The reason why Dr. Nick Caballero Ardin once said, and I would like to quote, "Police profession is one of the risky professions. A single mistake of or failure of a police officer in observing the legal provisions in law enforcement will lead them to dismissal from the service, imprisonment, and sa masamang palad, 6 feet below the ground." Therefore, police officer must all the time be mindful what is right and what is wrong in performing their job, and must be able to give swift but correct decision for actions. Lastly, the important role of police in development of human society. Progress in all aspects of society will not materialize without security order provided by the police. Our country's economy is also dependent with the taxes and investment from foreign countries or foreign investors. So if you are foreign business investor, knowing that our country crime rate is very high, will you gamble your money for business investment in this country? Definitely kung ako, hindi. Kay mahadlokan gid kuya nga maputo akong business kag madula ang akong kwarta as well as ang ako nya gin pangabudlayan. Kung wala investors, apektado ang economy. Damo madulaan obra kag mataas ang unemployment rate. Tungod wala obra, wala income, gutom. Tungod gutom, mangawat or engage sa commission of crime para makakwarta kag makasurvive sa kapigaduhon kag sa kagutom. In this particular scenario, we can see significance of an efficient and effective police force and officers. That's how important police are in our society, and that's the importance of maintaining low crime rate in our country, because by doing so, we are attracting foreign business investor to put up business here in our country that will largely contribute to our industrialization and development. That's why, lastly, I can say that getting in the police profession is the best decision or choice nga kunubo ang crime rate, kinahanglan damo nga pulis to maintain. No? So, kinahanglan damo man sang recruitment. So, kung taas naman ang crime rate, kinahanglan gihapon damo pulis to combat crime problem. Again, we need more applicants to recruitment. Reason why wala gauntat ang recruitment. Like this time of pandemic, police profession lang gid ang hindi apektado kay sige ang hiring, while others stop hiring and some nga ilang nga gin-work nag-stop. Ang pulisya sige recruitment kag nagdugang pa ang quota kay kulang. That's the best thing in choosing criminology course and police professions in terms of employment. So that ends my lecture. For your question, you may ask them later or send us to answer for that. Let's Let's now proceed to the next topic with Sir Jethro Flores for the lecture and demonstration of pat-down search, body frisking, and handcuffing.
Good day, criminology aspirants. I'm Michael Jatro Flores, a third-year BS Criminology student in STI West Negros University. So my task for this virtual immersion, I'm going to discuss and demonstrate the basic law enforcement action. And I'm referring to body frisking, spot checking, and arresting techniques. So before we proceed, just continue to write some important notes and just listen and relax and focus. And after this discussion, we will be showing demonstration videos on the said topics. So let's distinguish first the spot check and body frisking. So spot check is an inspection and brief stopping of an individual for the purpose of determining the individual's identity and resolving the officer's suspicion concerning criminal activity. While body frisking is conducted to an individual that has been legitimately stopped for the purpose of searching to detect any concealed weapon or illegal object. So what are the grounds for spot checking or search? So the police officer may stop an individual, whether on foot or in a vehicle, for the purpose of conducting a spot check only when there is reasonable suspicions exist. So what are these reasonable suspicion?
So what are the reasonable suspicion for spot check or search? So first we have here the appearance or demeanor and actions of a person that he is part or is engaged in criminal act. No? So when you are conducting the spot check, no, magkanda ka spot check, mag-interview ka, na i-check mo gina niyang appearance, no? Kung galuhob man na, no? Kung adikon siya, and then the action of the person, ang iyang action. So, for example, pag interview mo siya nga gakurog-kurog sa daw guilty sa nga may ginatago nga illegal object or weapon, so dira mo babalaan sa iyang action. So, dira masulod na yun si body frisking or pat-down search. So, before you conduct the pat-down search, dapat mahambal ka danay nga, sir, pwede ka danay namon i-search kay para sa suspicious purposes. Kung ang isa ka persona nga ginakonduct nyo search, nagpasugot man, confidence nga, sir, pwede nyo gid ko ma-conduct. So, kung pag-conduct nyo body frisking, wala man kamo may nakita, so wala na further search nga may matabo. So, what if nga ang ginhambalan nyo nga, sir, pwede ka namon i-search. Tapos, nag-insist no? Commonly sa reality, ang mo ginagatabon no? Sa mga adikon nga i-spot check mo. Ang balo na nila nga, sir, anong gihimo ko nga malain nga i-search nyo ko. Yan. Ang mo ginang kalabanan nga isa sa mga rason. So, kung magamo na ang sitwasyon, hindi nyo siya ipag-force. Do not force him nga pilito nga i-search. Pero let him know nga may ara ka o 30. Let him know nga police officer ka. Ang bali na sa, sir, ikanda ka ginamon search kay para sa suspicious purposes para maging safe ang aton community. Ipachindi mo gid siya. Mahimo ka gid way nga makandak mo sa search. Kay what if kung gimpilit mo, isa ka police officer, gipilit mo, mabalik pa na si mo, no? Nang illegal search na. Kag may, kung i-force mo sa abusive pa gid na. So, as a police officer, dapat halong kita sa mga atong ginapanggiyo, no? Kay may ara gina human rights. So next, we have here the suspect clothing bulges in a manner that suggests he is carrying a weapon. No? So as you can see sa atong picture sa slide, no, amo ginang kalabanan. Amo nang ginanaminsang clothing bulges, no? Gahabok sa kilid, no? Amo na ang kung manakita ka mo na nga nakasibilyan nga may gahabok sa kilid nang tapos do pusil ang orma, amo na siya. So kung what if nga makasugata ka mo na sa isa ka mall, i-conduct nyo ang spot check. Interviewon nyo gidanay bago ka mo maghimo sang ipasunod do na gid, conduct the spot check, interview, search, and then arrest if necessary kung may violation sa law. So what if may nakasugata ka mo na? Interview yun, sir, ng pwede ka namon ma-interview. Sir, nang kay mayara gid si mga suspicious sir sa imong outer clothing, no? Mahalata sir. So ano nyo, pamukoton nyo, sir, mayara ta na permit nga makadala ta pusel sa gwa. So kung mayara man gid kay for the reason nga retired PNP siya or army PDEA, so ano ta na i-chindihon ta na nga ano sa pero ihambalan ta man nga sir dason sir nang hindi na gid na pabalo-balo dapat nakatago gid kung may permit ta. What if kung wala permit? So then body frisking and arrest should be made, no? Kung wala permit kay illegal na sa magdala weapon sa sa community. So next we have here the peace officer or police officer has the knowledge of the suspect's prior criminal record or involvement in criminal activity, no? So it means nga, so for example, nang mayara ka duty sa plaza or sa mall, then suddenly may nakakita kang at large na person or wanted person. When we say at large, Arab lang nga naghimo krimen nga wala pa nadakpan, no? Nang at large pa sa. So what will you do as a police officer? So kung nasugatan mo siya, liwat sunod ta. What if kung nasugata mo siya? So conduct the spot check. Interview mo sa biskan kay kung mag-arrest ka lang niya diretso, tapos makasala ka, mabalik pa na si mong kaso. So interviewon siya. Kalma lang sa police officer. Sir, anong pangalan ta? Anong edad ta? Anong ta? Kung sagad ang wanted person na ang naging change siya, so mahimo kagid way. So mas mayo kung may record siya, mayara ka picture sa imong cellphone, no? Para nga ma-sure gid nga kag ma-verified nga siya gid nga ang suspect nga no at large. So once nga ma-verified sa, then dira masulod si search. After the search, and arrest and state the Miranda rights.
So what are the approaches and actions for conducting the spot check? So in this slide, here are the procedures and guidelines for conducting the spot check. The first thing that you will do as a police officer, you have to clearly identify yourself as a police officer. Introduce yourself as a police officer. Act like a police officer. Sir, what if hindi po ako naka-uniforme? Paano po nila ako makilala na isa po akong police? So if not in uniform, just announce your identification card or badge. Second, we have here, be courteous at all times. Be polite, be respectful in order to avoid misunderstanding, trouble, and abusive stuff. And also to gain their respect and yours. But remember this, take note of this, but maintain caution and remain vigilant. Therefore, you have to be careful always. Okay? Take note, be courteous at all times, but remain vigilant. Next, we have here, third, when conducting the spot check, ask the subject as to his or her identity, place of residence, and other inquiries to resolve the police officer's suspicion. No? So when conducting the spot check, kinahanglan nyo gid nga ikuhaon ang ilang identity, like the name, ang ilang edad, kung diin sila ga-start. And lastly, we have here, avoid holding a person longer than the period reasonably necessary to be able to make the inquiries and to resolve suspicion. No, because it will consider abusive stuff, no? Hindi yan makatao. So, illegal yan sa ating batas kapag nag-abuse ka ng isang tao. So, what if that individual need to be searched? So, body frisking and pat-down search shall be done. But first, let's define what is body frisking. Body frisking is also called a pat-down search. It is a searching of a person's outer clothing, wherein a person checking runs or her hand to the outer garments in order to detect any concealed weapon and illegal objects. So these are the following things to consider prior to conducting a body frisking. First, we have here, the reasonable suspicion is observed. and when the police officer has been to believe that the individual possesses a weapon. Next, we have here the possesses a threat to the police officers or another person's safety. No? So, for example, if someone threatening you, no, and you are a police officer, because threat is not a joke, so you have the right to conduct him a spot check and body frisking. Take note of this. Whenever possible, pat-down searches should be performed by the peace officer or police officer of the same gender. No? Laki sa laki, kag bae sa bae. So next, here are the guidelines and procedures of the body freeze or pat-down search. So pat-down searches should be conducted by at least 2 police officers. One is to perform the search, while the other provides protective cover.
So next we have here two position for pat-down search and body frisking. So first we have the standing position. So standing position should perform the hands placed against a stationary object like sa wall and the feet spread apart, no? Dapat nga nakabika again. And next we have here the prone position. So ang prone position nakahigda naman eh. So ginagamit lang eh kung ang isa ka police officer may nakita yan na ang isa ka weapon or pistol man da or knife sa isa ka suspect, no? So may ara na command magpa prone position ka sa isa ka suspect. So ang first na himuon mo na is nang pataas mong kamay or butang sa kamay sa sa likod, sa ulo, tapos patalikodon mo siya. Tapos after sa talikod niya, paluhodon mo siya. And then after sang luhod, dira mo ang balon nga higda, hapa, no? Pero ang kamot niya dapat aragapon sa ulo or nakapababaw, no? Kag ang iyang tail naka-spread gyapon. So dira mo diyan i-body frisking or pat-down search ang isa ka suspect, no? Ang ginagamit ng prone position para maging secure ang inyong pag-search, no? Wala may matabo or counter pagid sa isa ka police, no? So makita yun na karon sa ipakita ng mga video ang demonstrations ang body frisking with using the two position of pat-down search and the handcuffing techniques. After this discussion, makita yun na karon.
So, what if the suspect is carrying an object such as handbag, suitcase, briefcase, or sack? Ano ang kinahanglan himuon sang police officer? So, here, the police officer or peace officer should not open the item, but instead put in a place out of the suspect reach. No, ipalayo mo siya. Kag hindi mo na pwede mai-open kay illegal search na. So, instead nga i-open mo, ipalayo mo na lang. Okay? So, next we have here, what if the external padding of the suspect's clothing fails to disclose evidence of a weapon? So, kung wala man kamo pag-conduct nyo body frisking, wala man kamo manakakita nga concealed weapon or illegal objects, so no further search may be made. So, what if a weapon is found and the possession of which amounts to a violation of law? No? Ano himuon ka police kung may pag-search nila, pag-conduct body frisking, may nakakita sila concealed weapon. So, the police officer shall arrest that suspect and conduct a complete search of his person. So next, we have here the reporting after the spot check or accosting or pat-down search. So, if after conducting a spot check or pat-down search, the police officer has no basis for making an arrest, he should record the facts of such spot check or pat-down search and forward a report to appropriate authority. So when you are conducting the spot check and body frisking, so gina-record ta gina-take down notes ta like subong ginahimo nyo, ga-take down notes gid. So practice on ta kag i-implement na when we are aiming to become a PNP. Next, if the spot check or accosting or pat-down search gives a justification for a valid warrantless arrest, then arrest shall be made. Like what I said earlier, if you found some if you're conducting this body frisking and nakakita lang mo and concealed weapon or illegal object, so warrantless na. Automatic i-arrest nyo yung na. So that would be all in my part in the basic law enforcement action. So I hope you learned from us and we able to impart to you the things that you need to learn in the basic law enforcement action. So thank you for your patience in staying until the end of our lecture. So let's go back to Miss Jessa to end this lecture. So see you all here at STI West Negros University, College of Criminal Justice Education. I am stoked to see you all here and be one of us. Choose STI, aim high.
Okay, students, I'm back, and as a continuation of the law enforcement topic, let's talk about arrest. So, arrest is taking a person into custody in order that he may be bound to answer the commission of an offense. So, a police officer can arrest a person if he or she committed a crime. So, hindi ang police officer kadakop sang isa ka person kung waay siya ka-commit crime. So, speaking of arrest, we have here a warrant of arrest. It is defined as the written authority of the arresting officer when making an arrest. So, warrant of arrest is essential in conducting arrests sa police officer. Kaya mo ni siya ang basis siya nga dakpo niya ang isa ka person or ang ina nga person kay may ara siya sang warrant of arrest, wherein the validity of this is 10 days from the receipt. So, 10 days may ara ang isa ka arresting officer, 10 days para dakpon ang ina nga person. So, kung maglapaw sa 10 days nga hindi pa na madako pa nga muna nga person, may ara sa dapat valid reason nga awa ay nadakop na ang ina nga person, then mangayo naman siya liwat sa judge sang warrant of arrest. Now, let's talk about arrest without a warrant of arrest. So, istoryanta naman diya kung paano ang isa ka police officer magdakop sang isa ka person nga waay siya sang warrant of arrest. So, a peace officer or a private person may, without a warrant, arrest a person first if kung when in his presence the person to be arrested has committed, is actually committing, or is attempting to commit an offense. So, kung nakita sang isa ka police officer nga ang ina nga tawo mahimo nagidya sang crime or makumit pa lang siya, ma-attempt pa lang siya nga mag-commit sang crime, the police officer can arrest that person para, of course, for the safety of everybody. So, dakpo na sa daan para hindi na sa makasalabat pa sa iban. Next, we have here, when an offense has just been committed and has probable cause to believe, based on personal knowledge or facts of circumstances, that the person to be arrested has committed it. So, if the person committed nagidyasang crime, of course, the police officer without warrant of arrest can arrest the person. Kay may probable cause nga nag-commit ang person sang crime. Of course, we can't arrest the person gani kung waay siya kahimo sang crime. Pero kung ang person nakahimo sang crime, biskan mo ay pa na siya warrant of arrest, kay tungod nakahimo sa amuna nga tsimpo sang crime, ang police officer dakpon gid siya. Another thing, a police officer can arrest a person without warrant of arrest when a person to be arrested is a prisoner who has escaped from the penal establishment or place where he is serving final judgment or temporarily confined while his case is pending, or has escaped while being transferred from confinement area to the another. So, of course, kung ang isa ka prisoner nakagwa siya sa prisuhan, ang police officers has the authority nga magdakop siya biskan mo ay siya warrant of arrest. Kay ang isa ka prisoner hindi siya pwede makalagaw-lagaw sa gwa kay tungod nga may kinahanglan pa siya nga sa labton sa iya nga na commit nga crime. So, ang police officer, magdakpon gid siya dapat para hindi na siya makasalabat pa sa iban. In case, so, without warrant of arrest, a police officer can arrest sa person nga nakagwa sa prisuhan. Next is where the accused released on bail attempts to leave the country without permission of the court. So, kung example, ang isa ka tawo may kaso pa sa nga kinahanglan ginatubang kag ginbayaran niya lang ang iyang bail o ginbayaran ng iyang fine. So, pwede gid siya Japon nga dakpon kay magwa siya sa country para maglagyo man Japon. So, hindi pwede nga ang isa ka tawo nga may ginaatubang pa siya nga kaso or case mag-attempt gwa sa country. So, it is not valid. So, let's go to the authority of the police officer or the arresting officer when making an arrest. So, if there is a summon assistant, a police officer can arrest that person or he or she has the authority to arrest that person. And second is to break into building or enclosure, and lastly to break out from building or enclosure. So if ang isa ka tawo or isa ka person nga dalakpon nag-insist siya or nangindi siya nga magpadakop sa isa ka police officer, ang police officer may right or ang arresting officer may right nga mag-break out or magsulod sa ina nga building para i-arrest ang isa ka person. Of course, let's now proceed to the procedures on serving warrant of arrest. So first, verify the validity of warrant and request for an authenticated copy from the issuing court. As a arresting officer, first, you need to request for the original and authenticated copy of warrant of arrest because ang court lang gid maka-issue sang warrant of arrest and it's only valid for 10 days. And upon serving the warrant, the police officer should introduce himself and show proper identification. Of course, as a arresting officer, kung dakpon mo ang ina nga tawo, ipakilala mo danay ang imo nga kaugalingon in a nice way. Kung sa diin kapakita ka man Japon, respect sa imo nga dalakpon. Hindi kay gulpi-gulpi mo na sa dakpon nga waay kapagani ka pakilala. Next, make a manifestation of authority against the person to be arrested. Of course, paitsindihon sa danay nga dakpon siya. Dakpon siya kay amuni dakpon ka namon kay tungod nga nakakommit ka sa amuni nga crime. So, paitsindihon ang isa ka person nga darakpon para hindi siya insist if ever nga mapaintindihan mo man sa iya or mapaintindi mo man sa iya. Next, if refuse the entry, the police officer may break into residence, office, building, or other structure where the person to be arrested is in or is reasonably believed to be in after announcing his purpose. So, after dabi karon nimo hambal kag ang isa ka person na nagsulod sa isa ka balay or nagsulod sa isa ka building, you have that authority nga sundon or sudlon man na kung posible bukon mong isa ka glass, bukon mo para lang madakop siya. Okay, next is that the police officer need not to have a copy of warrant in his possession at the time of arrest if the person arrested so requires. The warrant shall be shown to the arrested person as soon as possible. Of course, kung ay binadala sa isa ka person ang warrant of arrest, pagka dakop sa nga muna nga person, dapat gid pakita sa iya nga may ara siya warrant of arrest. Next is that secure the person to be arrested and use handcuffs for the protection of the arresting officer or other individuals or the arrested person himself. Of course, para sa protection sa isa ka police officer, kinahanglan gid iposas ang isa ka nadakopya. Kay useless ang pagdakop sa isa ka person kung hindi mo sa pusasan. Kay basi makasalabat na sa karon sa iban kay kung makabato pa siya. So dapat i-incapacitate sa by using handcuff. And next is that conduct thorough search for weapons and other illegal materials on the person arrested and surrounding within his immediate control. So, upon arresting the person, kung alam siya sa incapacitate yung position or situation, pat down search gid siya dayon. That's why mo to tudlo si Sir Jetro on how to do pat-down search. Kay base karon may mga deadly weapon pada siya nga gina-carry, at least makuha siya for the protection of the arresting officer as well as protection man sa iya nga kaugalingon in case magbato siya. And inform the person to be arrested of his rights under the Miranda warning and anti-torture warning. Of course, as a person nga may sala, may ara man sa sang iya nga rights. I-inform gina siya sang iya Miranda warnings and anti-torture warning. Kay kung hindi, useless ang pagdakop mo sa iya, kay pwede ma-close ang case kay sala ang paagi or procedures nga pagdakop mo sa isa ka person. So, it is very vital nga ihambal ang Miranda warning and anti-torture warning para makabalo ang isa ka person sang iya nga rights. So, speaking of Miranda warning, it consists a statement wherein ga-state siya sang rights of a person nga dalakpon. So, gahambali siya nga you are arrested for the crime of. So, i-state mo da kung ano ang crime nga ginhimo sang ina nga person. Example, be naka-commit sa robbery, then you are arrested to the crime of robbery, wherein you have the right to remain silent. Any statement you make may be used for or against you in any court of law in the Philippines. You have the right to have a competent and independent counsel, preferably of your own choice. If you cannot afford the service of counsel, the government will provide one for you. Do you understand these rights? So, maghambal na biskan hindi pa siya magsabat, ang imo dalakpon, at least nahambal mo sa iya ang iya nga rights. Kay kung waay mo ni nahambal, nugon lang sa pagdakop mo sa isa ka person. So, it is also essential nga sa ulohon mo ni siya as a arresting officer. Kasi, utod-utod, patakang paghambal mo, mahuyan ka pa. So, as a arresting officer, dapat sa ulo mo ni ang Miranda warning. And another thing is the anti-torture warning. You have the right to demand physical examination by an independent and competent doctor of your choice. If you cannot afford the service of a doctor, the state shall provide one for you. Of course, kung pagambala sa karon nga gisakit ko sang isa ka pulis, at least ginambal mo ang anti-torture warning. O sa diin pwede da siya kapa-check up kung ay siya capacity or ability nga magbayad sang isa ka doktor, no, ang government ma-provide sa iya. In case you have a proof nga ginhambal mo ni ang tanan siya, para in case nga i-feedback or ibalik tanan nga sa labi nga pag-arrest mo, at least may pang bato ka as a arresting officer. Okay, as a continuation of the procedures in serving warrant of arrest, the next is no unnecessary force shall be used in making an arrest. Of course, if that person is nagabato siya, ang isa ka arresting officer, hindi siya pwede ka-apply force sa pagdakop sang isa ka person. So, it is not valid if that arresting officer applied force sa person nga dalakpon niya. Next is that confiscated evidence shall be properly documented with the chain of custody of evidence and clearly established. Of course, kung naka-confiscate ka da sa bisang pag-search mo sa iyalawas, kung may ara da nga mga sundang or may drugs ka na nga na kuha, i-photograph gina sa dayon kag i-preserve ang amo na nga evidence para sa trial, no, ang arresting officer may ipakita nga proof. Next, bring the arrested person to the police station for the documentation. Of course, upon nga pagdakop or pag-arrest na isang isa ka person, dalon gina siya dayon sa police station. Hindi sa pwede dalon pa sa mga patrolling, no? Hindi pwede, dapat irikta na sa sang arresting officer sa police station. And lastly, deliver the arrested person to the jail or prison upon the issuance of commitment order of the court. Of course, kung natapos na ang iya nga trial, no, kag nagilty siya, ang isa ka arresting officer dapat dalon niya na ang arrested person or na arrest na nga person sa jail nga iya nga na-assignan. So, kung diin ang ginano sang court sa iya nga jail, digto na siya idulong sang arresting officer. Hindi na siya pwede nga ibutang lang Japon sa police station. So, thank you so much for listening. That ends with the law enforcement action subject, and I hope that we impart knowledge on you, and I hope to see you soon at STI West Negros University as criminology student. So, aim high and God bless.